Okay, well, good afternoon, girls and guys. Welcome to today's life science session. Before we start, please can everyone raise their hands if they can hear me? If you can hear me, please raise your hands. Okay. I'm just going to wait for everyone to get settled, and then we're gonna start. So I'm going to allow for about 5 minutes before I start. Okay, but with a show of hands, can you please indicate if you can hear me? Okay, I'm going to allow for 5 minutes so that everyone joins in. Okay, so in the meantime, please make sure your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. Please also note that you will be automatically muted when joining the session. So if you've got any queries or any questions, please use the question box. Please send all your questions or queries to the question box, and then download this presentation on the handout section. So there's a PDF document on the handout section with today's PowerPoint slides. Okay, remember to please send us your questions. Okay. Guys, please, I do apologize for my screen. Due to connectivity issues, I will not be showing my camera today, but I hope all of you can hear me. Okay, so the only screen that you will be seeing today is my PowerPoint slides. Okay, so just so that we do not have connectivity issues, I've had to turn off my camera. Okay, but I am looking good, I promise you. So yeah, okay. Okay, you can put your hands down, please. Okay, 3 more minutes and we are going to start. In the meantime, please just get comfortable, get your pen and paper ready just in case you need to add in something. Get a glass of water, some brain food. Just get yourself comfortable before we start. Okay, so about 3 more minutes and then we're gonna start. Right, my name is Belinda Malachi and I will be presenting today's session. All right. If you've got any questions during the presentation, please use the question box. Okay, you will not be able to see me today. Okay, 1 more minute and we're gonna start. Sorry about that. Right, so we're going to start our presentation. All right, so today we will be looking at the support system in animals. In a previous session, we have looked at the support system in plants. So we've seen that there is various tissue in plants that give it support, okay, that enables it to grow tall and withstand external forces. Okay, so today we'll be looking at support system in animals. So we will be looking at the human skeletal system. Right, so different types of animals have different types of support systems. Okay, there is animals whose support system is in liquid form. Okay, so their support system is in liquid form. Those animals are known to have hydrostatic skeletons. Okay, those animals are known to have hydrostatic skeleton. And an example of an animal that has a hydrostatic skeleton is an earthworm. Okay, so the skeleton inside this animal is in liquid form. Okay, it is supported by liquid, right? Another form of a skeleton is known as an endoskeleton. Okay, this is an internal cartilaginous or bony skeletons. All right, sorry about that. Let's move it. Okay, so an example of an animal with an endoskeleton would be an elephant, humans, horses, fish. So this skeleton is found internally, okay, normally covered by other forms of tissue or organs like our skin, right? And then lastly, another type of skeleton is known as an exoskeleton. Okay, this is a hard external skeleton consisting of a carbohydrate known as chitin. Okay, so this skeleton with endoskeleton, animals with endoskeletons have their skeleton internally, and then animals with an exoskeleton have their skeleton on the outside. Okay, and it mainly consists of a carbohydrate known as chitin. Okay, an example of an animal with an exoskeleton is a crab or a crab. All right. Okay, so those are the three types of skeleton in animals: the hydrostatic skeleton, endoskeleton, and the exoskeleton. All right. So the human skeletal system consists of bones, joints, ligaments, tendons, and cartilage, and it forms about 20% of your body mass. Okay, so the human skeletal system consists of those, but mainly it consists of bones. Right, so an adult human skeleton has about 206 bones. So this skeleton that you see over there, although some of the bones have been cut off, forgive me with that, consists of about 206 bones. Okay. Added to these bones, you will find joints that join the bones together. You will find ligaments that connect joints to bones. Okay. You will find tendons that connect muscles to bones. And you will find cartilage that allows bones to move easily. Okay, so all these things that I've mentioned, bones, tendons, ligaments, and and cartilage form part of the human skeletal system. Okay, so to start off, we're going to be looking at the bones. Okay, we're going to be looking at the human skeleton, which consists of about 206 bones. All right, so the human skeleton consists of two main parts, right? The one part is known as the axial skeleton. Okay, the axial skeleton consists of the vertebral column, also known as the spine, the skull, and the rib cage. So the axial skeleton consists of the vertebral column, known as the spine, the skull, and the rib cage. And the other part of the skeleton system is known as the appendicular skeleton, and it consists of the upper and lower limbs and the front and the hind, okay, or the pelvic and the pectoral girdle. Okay, so don't be alarmed or nervous or anything. We're still gonna go through this human skeleton. Okay, we're gonna look at all the bones on the skull, all the bones in the limbs, all the bones in the spine and the rib cage. Right, so don't be overwhelmed by all these things. We're going to be going through all of this. We're going to be going through all of these bones, right? Okay, I'm just going to check again. Can you guys hear me? Can you please just raise your hands if you are able to hear me? Please, can you raise your hand for me? Thank you. Thank you. I see hands are going up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, can you please just raise your hands if you can hear me, because I don't want to lose anyone. All right, so before I go into the next slide, please indicate with a show of hand if you can hear me. Okay, before I move on to the next slide. All right, thank you. Okay, so just to recap on what we have learned here, the human skeletal system consists of the skeleton, joints, ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. Okay, we've also learned that the adult human skeleton has about 206 bones. It is divided into two parts known as the axial skeleton, which consists of the spine, the skull, and the rib cage. Okay, and the other part of the human skeleton is known as the appendicular skeleton, which consists of the upper limbs, the lower limbs, the pelvic girdle, which you see over there, the pelvic girdle, and the pectoral girdle. Okay, so we will be looking at all these bones in the human skeleton in detail in the next slides, right? Okay, so what is the function of the skeleton? Okay, first of all, it protects internal organs. Okay, like the skull, the bones in the skull protect the brain, right? And if you guys can participate with me, what other internal organs do you think are protected by the skeleton? Okay, if you guys can participate, what other internal organs do you know of that are protected by the human skeleton? Okay, I'm going to leave you guys to send your answers while I continue. Okay, so one of the functions of the skeleton is that it protects internal organs, it stores and releases fat, produces blood cells. Okay, so about 1 trillion blood cells are produced inside the human skeleton. Okay, it stores and releases minerals. Okay, you see there is calcium over there, one of the minerals that is stored inside the human skeleton. It facilitates movement and it supports the body. Okay, so it facilitates movement. As you can remember, in earlier grades, you've learned about the 7 life processes. In order for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it must perform 7 processes. You've learned that in previous grades, I think grade 7 and grade 10. Yeah, so in order for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to perform 7 processes known as Mrs. Gran. Okay, this is not important. I just want to show you how important the skeletal system is. Okay, so in order for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to perform 7 processes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 processes. We call this, we shorten it. There's a mnemonic for it called Mrs. Gran. Okay, so this helps you remember. Okay, the M stands for movement. Okay, the M stands for movement. So in order for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to move. And this is where the human skeleton plays a role, since it facilitates movement. Okay, so it's very important. Without movement, an organism cannot be classified as a living organism. Okay. The R stands for respiration, and also you will be looking at all or most of these processes in the next grades. Respiration you will be looking at next year when you do grade 11. So in order for a living organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to respire. Okay, again, for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to grow. Okay, and it needs to reproduce. Okay, so also the skeletal system helps or assists in growth as well. Okay, so it needs to grow, it needs to reproduce, which will also be looking at this. Okay, reproduction when you do grade 12, and it needs to excrete. This is an excretion. It's called excretion. Your body getting rid of waste products. Okay, also for an organism to be classified as a living organism, it needs to eat. So the N stands for nutrition. The S stands for sensitivity. Your 5 senses need to be sensitive to hearing, you need to be sensitive to smell, touch, and so forth. Okay, so this is it's not important. They're not going to ask you in the exam. I just wanted you to make a connection between a living organism and the skeletal system, the human skeleton. Okay, so because it facilitates with movement and it helps with growth as well. Okay, so that's makes it very important aspect of our life. Okay, the last function of the skeleton is known, is support. It supports the body. All right, so the functions of the skeleton is protecting internal organs, storage and release of fats, production of blood cells, storage and release of minerals, facilitation of movement, and support. Okay, so these are very important for examination. You need to know what the functions of the skeleton are. All right, okay. Okay, please remember to send questions if you have any questions, or if you didn't quite get what I said in this slide. Okay, the N in Mrs. Gran stands for nutrition. Okay, so living organisms must eat. They must be nourished. Right. So we're going to be looking at the axial skeleton first, and then we're going to go to the appendicular skeleton. We said the axial skeleton consists of the skull, the rib cage, and the spine. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the skull first. All right, so the skull has about 22 to 29 bones altogether. Okay, it is made up of the cranial bones. Okay, 8 cranial bones which protect the brain, and it is made up of facial bones which gives the face structure. Okay, so the skull consists of about 29 bones made up of the cranial bones, 8 cranial bones that protect the brain, and the facial bones that give the face its structure. Okay, so looking deep into the cranial bones, okay, we have the temporal bone, okay, we have the parietal bone, we have the frontal bone, sorry, we have the occipital bone, okay, and then, sorry about that, okay, and in the, sorry about that. Our facial bones consist of the lower jaw, known as the mandible, and the upper jaw, known as the maxilla. Okay. Also in the facial bones, we have our cheekbones, and then we have our nasal bones over there, right? So all these bones form the skull, right? Remember, the cranial bones protect the brain, and the facial bones give the shape its structure, right? Okay, we have the teeth. Okay, the adult human has about 32 teeth, and the child has about 20 milk teeth. Okay, and the milk teeth usually start to loosen at the age of 6 and are replaced. But remember, this differs from individual to individual. Okay, for some it starts earlier, for some it goes later than 6. Okay, but at the end of the day, milk teeth, sorry, will start to loosen and will be replaced, right? So we have about 4 types of teeth. We have the canines, we have incisors, we have premolars, and then we have molars. Okay, so these are the different types of teeth found in men, and they assist in breaking down food okay, which will make them easy to swallow into our stomach and into our intestines for digestion, right? The other part of the axial skeleton is known as the vertebral column, okay? The vertebral column is the vertical support of the body that allows us to walk upright, to bend over, to squat, to turn, and so forth. Okay, it is also known as the backbone or the spine, right? So the vertebral column has about 26 bones as well, about 26 bones, and it is divided into 5 sections. Okay, the first 7 parts of the vertebral column, or the first 7 bones in the vertebral column are known as the cervical vertebra. And then the next 12 bones of the vertebral column is known as the thoracic vertebra. The next 5 bones in the vertebral column are known as the lumbar vertebra. Okay, the other 5 are known as the sacral vertebra, and lastly, the last 4 are known as the coccyx. Okay, in between this vertebral column, we have an invertebral disc that acts as a shock absorber when we jump and run. Okay, so this invertebral disc are found in between these bones and act as shock absorbers when we run and jump. Okay, remember to please send through your questions. Okay, if you did not quite get something, please send through your questions. Okay. Okay, so the vertebral column is the vertical support of the body, and it is divided into 5 sections: the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccyx vertebra. Right. Lastly, the last part of the axial skeleton is the rib cage. Okay, the rib cage, also known as the thoracic cage. Okay, the rib cage is formed by the 12 pairs of ribs, okay, that articulate with the vertebral column at the back. Okay, in front, the ribs are attached to the breastbone. Here's our breastbone here, which is made by 3 bones. Okay, so these 3 bones are fused together to form the breastbone, okay, also known as the sternum. Okay, this bone, the sternum, serves as extra protection for the heart and the lungs. So some of you who have named the heart and the lungs as one of the organs, internal organs that are supported by the skeleton, are 100% correct. Okay, so this sternum protects or serves as extra protection for the heart and the lungs. Okay, so connected to this sternum, we have about 7 ribs. Okay, these are known as the true ribs. These are known as the true ribs because they attach directly to the sternum. So the first 7 ribs are known as the true ribs as they attach directly to the sternum or to the breastbone. Okay, and then we have false ribs. Okay, they are called false ribs because they don't attach directly to the sternum, but they attached indirectly. So at some point they're gonna get to the sternum, but they attach to it indirectly. Okay, the last ribs are known as the last two, known as floating ribs, because they do not attach to the sternum at all. Okay, so from this rib cage, we have true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, according to whether or not they attach directly to the sternum, indirectly, or not attached to the sternum at all. Right? So and now we're going to be getting into the appendicular skeleton. Okay, so the appendicular skeleton consists of the pectoral girdle and upper limbs, and the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs. Okay, so let me go back to the first slide with a full view of the skeleton. Okay, so here's our pelvic girdle over there. It is formed by the sacrum, which we saw from when we were looking at the vertebral column. There was a sacrum there. It connects to the pelvic girdle, and we have the hip bones in the pelvic girdle as well. Okay, so the pelvic girdles helps in joining the lower limbs to the axial skeleton. Okay, so the pelvic girdle helps join the lower limbs to the axial skeleton. Okay, and then we have the pectoral girdle, which is formed by the clavicle, also known as the collarbone, and the scapula, also known as the shoulder blade. Okay, so also like the pelvic girdle, the pectoral girdle joins the upper limbs to the axial skeleton. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. The appendicular skeleton is formed by the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs, right? So the pelvic girdle consists of the sacrum and hip bones. Okay, so the function of the pelvic girdle is that it connects the lower limbs to the axial skeleton that we just looked at, right? And then another part of the appendicular skeleton is the pelvic girdle, which consists of the clavicle, also known as collarbones, and the scapula, also known as the shoulder blade. And its function is to connect the upper limb to the axial skeleton. All right. Okay, let's go back. All right. Okay, so here's a much clearer picture of the upper limb and the pectoral girdle. Okay, so we have our clavicle over there. We have our scapula. Okay, and then we have our arm. Okay, also known as the humerus. Okay, so the clavicle and the scapula form the pelvic girdle, and then from there we will connect to the lower limb, which consists of the humerus, the arm, and then we have the forearm. Okay, the forearm consists of two bones known as the radius and the ulna. Okay, and then from there we have our carpals, also known as the wrist. Okay, humans have about 8 bones in their wrists. These are known as the carpals. Okay, then we have the metacarpals that form the palm of the hand. Okay, and then we have the phalanges that form the fingers. Okay. Right. So the lower limb and the pelvic girdle are not very different from the upper limb. Okay. So in the pelvic girdle and lower limbs, we have the sacrum and the coccyx. Okay. And then we have the pubis. Okay. Joining that is the femur, also known as the long bone. And this is going to be, might be examined. Okay. They like asking you to draw and label this in your examination. Okay. So it is very important to learn the structure of this femur. Okay. This is also known as the hip, or commonly known as the hip or long bone. Okay, so this is the longest bone in your body. Okay, it is called the long bone because it's the longest bone in your body. Okay, again, we have the leg. Just like the forearm, the leg is made up of two sets of bones. Okay, the tibia and the fibula. Okay, we also have tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, so this is different from the hand. Okay, this is called carpals and this is called tarsals. So please take note of the difference. These are tarsals, these are carpals. Think T for toes. Okay, so that could be one way of remembering that in our lower limbs we have tarsals and not carpals. Okay, we have tarsals and metatarsals. Right. Let's see if everyone is still awake. Okay. Please raise your hands again for me if you can still hear me. If you're still awake, let's see. Please raise your hands for me. Okay, I can see everyone is still awake. Please remember to ask questions if you don't understand something. Okay, please ask questions. Nobody can see these questions but me, so no one is gonna judge you. All right, so if you don't understand something, please do ask. All right. Okay, let's continue. Right, so that brings us to the last part of our skeleton. Okay, so let's just recap. Okay, so the skeleton is made up of two parts, axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. Okay, the axial skeleton is made up of the skull, which consists of the cranial and facial bones. It is also made up of a vertebral column divided into 5 sections known as the cervical vertebra, thoracic vertebra, lumbar vertebra, sacral vertebra, and the coccyx. Okay. Again, in the axial skeleton, we have the rib cage that has about 12 ribs, divided as two true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, depending on whether they connect directly to the breastbone. Okay. The appendicular skeleton consists of the pectoral girdle, upper limbs, and the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs. Okay, so the pectoral girdle consists of the clavicle, collarbone, and the scapula, the shoulder blade, and it connects the lower limb to the axial skeleton that we learned previously. Okay, the lower limb consists of the humerus, the ulna and the radius, and the carpals, metacarpals, and the phalanges. Okay, then we have the pelvic girdle that joins the axial skeleton to the lower limb. Okay, the pelvic girdle consists of the sacrum, the coccyx, the sacrum and the pubis, coccyx, and the hip bones. The lower limb consists of the femur, also known as the long bone. Okay, the tibia, fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, so that brings us to the last part of our skeleton. Okay, but remember we said the skeleton in itself does not complete the skeletal system. Okay, in order for us for the bones to connect to one another, and in order for them to not disconnect, they need to be joined by something. All right, so otherwise if you raise your hand, it might disconnect. Okay, one part might disconnect and not join back together. Okay, so this brings us to the next part of our skeletal system, known as joints. Okay, so a joint is where two or more bones are joined by cartilage or a ligament. Okay, joints are classified according to function or structure. Okay, so by function we look at how much movement it allows. Okay, so we classify it according to how much movement the joint allows. Okay, so we have immovable joints. We have immovable joints. The name is explanatory. Okay, so these joints do not allow for movement at all. Okay, hence the name immovable joints. So we find these joints in the skull. Okay, so the skull is a part where you can find immovable joints. There is no movement needed in the bones in the skull, right? And then we have semi-movable joints. Okay, this allows for some movement. Okay, so not not that much, just a little bit of movement. Okay, so these joints allow for a little bit of movement. Okay, and the types of these joints are found in the ribs, okay, and the sternum. Okay, lastly, the other type of joint is known as a movable joint. Okay, so this allows for a large degree of movement, e.g. the shoulder or elbow. Okay, sorry. Movable joints are also called synovial joints. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the structure of a synovial joint just now. Okay, so movable joints are also called synovial joints. They are characterized by the fact that the bones are joined by ligaments. Okay. Synovial joints are filled with a fluid known as synovial fluid. Okay. This helps reduce friction during movements. Okay, so they are aligned with synovial fluid, which reduces friction during movement. Okay, so this is a structure of a synovial joint, and you may be asked to label this in an examination. Okay, so in a synovial joint, we have the joint cavity. This is the joint cavity or synovial fluid. This, as we have seen, reduces friction during movement. Okay, it reduces friction during movement and it allows for movement to happen. Okay, and then we have the articular cartilage. We have the articular cartilage over there. That's the articular cartilage, which protects the ends of the bone. So the articular cartilage protects the ends of the bone. All right, and then we have the ligaments and joint capsule. Right. So synovial joints can further be classified according to the type of movement performed. Okay, so we have ball and socket joints, e.g., we have the upper and the shoulder, or the hip and the thigh bone. Okay, so ball and socket joints help or facilitates rotation. Okay, again, another form of synovial joint is a hinge joint. Okay, so this restricts movement to one direction, the hinge joints. We find this type of joints in the knee and elbow joints. Okay, so we also have axial joints. This allows rotation around an axis. Okay, this allows for rotation. Okay, we have sliding joints found in the wrists. Okay, when bones slice over each other during movement. Okay, so we're gonna be looking into more detail. We're gonna be looking at the long bone, also known as the femur or the hip. Okay, so as I said, you need to know the structure for examination processes. Okay, so in the long bone, we have the epiphyseal, we have nutrient artery and the vein for nutrient supply. So this is how nutrients get into your bones for storage. Okay, this long part is known as the shaft, okay, or the periosteum. All right, so there is 4 types of bones: long bones, the femur and the humerus. Remember, the humerus is found in the upper limb. Okay, it is the arm in the upper limb, and then the femur is the longest bone in your body. Okay, that is the hip. It is called long bones because they are long. Okay, we have short bones, e.g. ribs. We have flat bones, the scapula, the hip bone, and the bones, the cranial bones. Okay, those are flat bones. And then we have irregular bones. They don't have that much of a distinct shape. Okay, and these are the bones in the vertebral column and the ossicles inside your ear. Okay, so those do not have a distinct shape. Those are known as irregular bones. Okay, if you've got questions, please send them through. Okay, I'll answer them at the end. Or if you'd like me to repeat something, please just say in the question box and then we can go back to it after finishing my presentation. Okay, lastly, we have the muscles. Okay, so muscles facilitate movement, right? Muscles and bones work together to form movement, okay, which is one of the 7 life processes. Okay, most of the muscles do not act on their own. They work together to facilitate movement. Okay, we have antagonistic muscles which work together to cause similar but opposite movements. When one muscle contracts, the other one relaxes. Okay, let's look. I hope you guys can see my GIF here, my GIF. Okay, so someone is moving their hand over here. I want you to look at this. When this one contracts, the other one relaxes. Okay, I want you to look at this movement between these 2 muscles over here. Okay, this is known as an antagonistic muscle. Similar but opposite movements. When one contracts, the other one relaxes. Okay, that one relaxes while the other one contracts. Okay. Okay, by show of hands, can everyone see the movement? If you can see the movement, please raise your hands. If you can see the movement. All right, so this is known as antagonistic muscles. They work in pairs. They work together to cause similar but opposite movements. When one relaxes, the other one contracts. All right. Diseases that affect the skeleton. Okay. We have rickets in children. Okay, and I want you to go and research these diseases after this lesson. Look at the causes and the effects of these diseases. Okay, we have osteoporosis and arthritis. Okay, so these are the diseases that can affect the skeletal system. Okay, so when we're done with this lesson, after eating and drinking your milk for more calcium to help strengthen your bones, please look at this. Go and research some of these diseases. Okay, some are caused by lifestyle. This means by the food that you eat. Okay, so if you are depriving your body of some nutrients, okay, it can result in in some of these diseases, but go and research that after this lesson. All right, so I'm going to be looking at a couple of questions. If you've got any questions, please, you can send them to academics@impact.co.za, and I will email you feedback as soon as possible. So if you did not get to ask any questions now, please, you can send an email at academics@impact.co.za. Okay, so but I'm going to quickly look at a couple of questions that you have sent now. Please explain the metacarpals and the metatarsals thing. I don't understand it clearly, like the difference between the two of them. Okay, so the only difference between the two is that carpals are found in the upper limb, while tarsals are found in the lower limb. That's the only difference right now. Okay, so the only difference is that carpals are found in the upper limb, and the metacarpals are found in the, carpals are found in the upper limb, and the tarsals are found in the lower limb. Okay. Are we going to need this till grade 12? Not really. You're going to be introduced to more content. They are interrelated, but you will not be required to answer questions on the skeletal system in grade 12. Okay, so in grade 12, you're going to learn more life processes like reproduction and growth and so forth. Okay, so you will not be questioned on the skeleton in grade 12, but you'll definitely be examined on it now in grade 10. Okay, so you have 5, somebody asked, do you have 5 fingers or 4 fingers and 1 thumb? You have 5 fingers, all right? You have 5 fingers. All right, so this brings us to the end of our session. Okay, remember to stay safe and wash your hands as often as possible. It was nice having you. Good luck with your studies and your examination. All right, bye guys.